All right, great, excellent. So PLDG is a foundation that our specific goal is to get more open source contributors involved in the PL ecosystem. And we're trying to fill the gap of, we have all of these absolutely phenomenal projects. They desperately need contributors. They need more open source maintainers. On the other side, we know that there are a lot of developers out there that are hungry for working on projects, whether that is because they're trying to build up their resume, whether that is because they're trying to learn a new language, or maybe they just really desperately like fixing link rot on ethereum.org. It's me. I like fixing link rot. And the way that we do this is through retro PGF funding, which means that folks are getting rewarded based off of the impact of the commits that they have on every project that they're working on. Each PLDG person is connected with a tech partner or a team, which is an open source project. And then they get mentorship and support. And then they also get paid, which hopefully can solve some of the problems with being an open source maintainer, of having this kind of consistent income source that is coming right directly to you. It's paid in fill. And again, it's based on impact. So if you have a couple of weeks where you are just really working on a meaty project and it is tough and like that PR took a while to get in, you're going to get and it's going to be a really impactful PR, you're going to get rewarded more. If you are someone who, say, is brand new to the ecosystem, you have never looked up Filecoin documentation before, you are just excited to learn more, you are still going to get retro PGF funding, even if you are working on, say, fixing documentation or refactoring some really simple code, which again, a lot of times that is something that maintainers are thrilled that someone is working on. The other thing that you get is a lot of resources and mentorship, and really just the opportunity and space to make working on these open source projects a priority as well. So we try to give space for that. Our tech partners for cohort 1, which has just over 40 developers involved, a couple of which are here. Our IPFS Filecoin, specifically Phil Oz and Phil Builders, libp2p, as you just heard, and DRAND, Storacha, and the Coordination Network. So those are our folks who we get to partner with, and our PLDGers are helping them maintain their open source projects. If you would like to be involved in PLDG, you can join the cohort 2 waitlist. It will probably start early January. My guess would be January 14th. Hint, but not confirmed yet. And you can join our Telegram group for updates. If you have an open source project where you are looking for more maintainers and you want to be involved in PLDG, definitely feel free to reach out to me as well, or go ahead and email us at join@pldevguild.ai. All right.
Yeah, sorry if this is redundant. Can you maybe speak a little bit to how you're measuring the impact of those contributors?
Ooh, yes, that's such a great question. This is actually a really, really great question, and it really depends, and this is where we work really closely with our technology partners on what impact means to them. And I don't know if you've ever given engineers an ambiguous task like evaluate based on impact. They are like, what does that mean? So what we specifically do is for the first 6 weeks, the program is 12 weeks total, but we divide it into 6-week blocks. If you are brand new to PLDG, you're going to start day 1, week 1. The first 6 weeks, we keep the RPGF reward pretty consistent for most folks, knowing that it just takes some like on-ramping time. And then the last 6 weeks, that is when we tend to have folks work on larger projects, and they kind of have more time to be a little bit more async. So we kind of give them that like learning space, and we know that, and we take that into account when we're measuring for impact. So the first 6 weeks, our baseline is you showed up, you participated, you're showing up to open maintainer calls, and then you're maybe putting in a PR or two. If you are putting in, a really fabulous PR and amazing, we add that in. And that's where we work with our tech partners on, okay, is this person, really contributing a lot? Do you think that this will have a ton of impact? And then the second 6-week part of the program, that is where a lot of times our tech partners will say straight up, like, this is a project, you should work on it. It is going to have a really strong impact. And the other thing that we do with some of our tech partners is we tag the GitHub issues as well of like, hey, this is a good starter problem, or hey, this is like a really hard problem that is going to take some time, but could have a ton of impact. Yes.
I find some of what you're saying pretty troubling for 2 reasons. Because one is, because where you're measuring participation, it sounds like you're just trying to like get people to be there.
So for the first 6 weeks, yes. Like our goal is to get you, we are under the assumption that you have not previously necessarily been super involved in the ecosystem, that you are coming on.
Which ecosystem are you discussing specifically?
Like the PL ecosystem.
But do you really need to have that to have an understanding of what people are trying to build and to participate?
I think it depends.
Yeah.
I think allowing folks the space to learn and the space to get caught up on code base, especially if they're working with tech that they've never interacted with before, and especially if like that Filecoin code base is deep, right? Or that DRAN code base.
Some people just prefer to just go over on time as well.
Yeah. And if you do you like put in a bunch of PRs like right away, you're still getting rewarded for that in the first 6 weeks. But we want to make sure that folks who maybe are new to the ecosystem, have maybe never worked with these technology partners before, don't immediately start and immediately feel behind. And they build up the habits of going to those open maintainer calls, connecting with other folks in the ecosystem, putting in initial PRs. And as the cohort progresses, what you'll see is larger PRs, larger rewards as well. But if you start off, so like Shashank is actually a really good example of this, who did our previous cohort. Also, you can join cohorts over and over again. So if you're a great contributor and you love PLDG, you can keep joining. Shashank, for instance, is getting a much higher retro PGF reward in, say, week 2, because they're working on a project that they've been working on for a while that we know is going to have a stronger impact than, say, someone who is just starting out in the program.
But now you're kind of forcing people to follow schedule.
Follow the schedule?
Follow schedule and the cadence, like it's like a product launch. So at that point, you kind of lose on the open source, the spirit of the open source element to begin with. And so this is what I find kind of troubling. I'm just trying to be honest and give feedback.
No, I think that's really good feedback. And I think that on that front, one thing that we definitely try to think about is this is just one way to be involved as an open source contributor. You can also be involved as an open source contributor and not do PLDG. You're not necessarily getting the retro PGF reward, but you can just be, if this like cadence doesn't work out for you, if this isn't something that you want to necessarily commit to, that's totally okay. We still encourage you to be, say, like an IPFS open maintainer or a Filecoin open maintainer.
Yeah, just to jump in here, echoing Katie, I'm Jared, also a member of the PLDG team. I think one of the core things we think about in that structure is how do we decrease the amount of ambiguity into contributing to open source, especially if you're A, not familiar with the technology, or B, familiar with an existing ecosystem. A lot of the focus on the experience and curriculum is just decreasing that barrier to entry, right? And in this early iteration of the program, a lot of that looks like hands-on structure in order to really get that flywheel going and growing and scaling. So definitely hear the thoughts and feedback, but also we're trying to create a clear point of entry for a lot of folks that may not necessarily have one.
So I had thoughts about the rolling up like from 0 to cohort 1. So it creates a competition factor. Like if I'm a part of Philo's team with 2 others who were from cohort 0, so it creates a competition factor, and we see in Slack that they are getting more mentioned and we are trying to interact, but they get all the, attentions from the team. because they are actually working on something and we are just, they're happy to be there. So the rolling feature should be a separate thing from 0 to 1, like create a separate batch for them. And the 6 weeks part should be for newcomers, like so they can feel more comfortable in their own space with their own peers. I mean, that's
Yeah, this is from both of you. This is actually really good feedback, and we are a very new program, so definitely always love hearing thoughts. And that's a really good piece of feedback. That when you're a new maintainer and you're walking in, and you've got folks that have been like, "I'm on cohort 3, cohort 4, cohort 5," I could definitely see where it maybe feels a little bit like, "Oh, I have never looked at this library before." So, yeah.
Also, let's say, for example, Phil B team, they won't focus more on the newcomers because they already have someone who knows everything and they are working. So, I mean, so as this cohort increases in size, the roll-up feature means the people that come from 0 to 1 to 3, they would also increase. So the portion of people that are new would eventually decrease and the experienced people would increase. So yeah, that would create a barrier. Huge.
Thank you so much. This is really helpful feedback. And I don't know if any of you all work on projects, but I constantly stay up at night thinking about like, okay, how can we do this better? How can we improve it? What are we missing? So really, truly, feedback is a gift. And if you have feedback about PLDG or what maybe you could envision for this, we're a new program. We're here to support the ecosystem. Please tell us. Please talk to me about it. Talk to Jared about it, because we really love hearing your feedback. It's incredibly helpful and invaluable. All right.
All right. Thank you for joining this track.
Thank you so much.
Give up some round of applause for Katie.
This was very much all Anuba.
Anuba, yes.
Very much. Underselling herself. Yeah, and Jared also as well. But thank you so much, everyone.